Hi, welcome again. In this video, we are looking at some of the essential tips and concepts you need to know about lighting landscape. And I want to mention this is not an artistic lesson. I'm trying to show you the lighting concept and so on, but this is just a technical guide. So you want to know some of the things especially related to Unreal Engine. Now we have a blank level. So let's try to add some stuff into my level. First, I need a directional light. So you can type in on the place actors tab. I can put it here, and then I'm gonna change this into a movable light because it's really hard to work with static lights in a landscape because we change stuff all the time. So it's better to have movable lights or dynamic lights. And I want to search in the details panel something called sun. So this should be an atmosphere sunlight. Right now we have directional light. So now we need the sky atmosphere. So let me drag and put it here. Basically it will give us some sky. So now we have the sun, and yeah, this is all we need. Then we need to have a skylight as well. So I'm gonna drag this here as well. Basically with a skylight, it will try to get some light from the sky and blend with our scene. This is really helpful. So that one also I'm gonna set that to movable. And here I'm gonna add the real-time capture. So this is pretty important. So otherwise I have to manually click this recapture button as soon as I change the sky. But with the 4.26 Unreal Engine has a real-time capture feature. This is not something performance heavy, you can simply use that. Right now we have the essential lightings for a landscape. So now let's try to add the landscape. For that one I'm gonna add a dummy landscape from the landscape tools, and let's create something around like, okay, right, I think this is good enough for my case. Here I'm using open land, so then I need to add auto layer as well. All right, so now we have the auto layer, and it's just the ground right now. That's fine. So now if you look at closely, and you can see in the horizon, I can see a sharp edge between the ground and the sky. So that's something we need to fix. We can easily fix this with exponential height fog, but before we add that one, we need to change something in our project settings. Go to edit, project settings, and search for height fog. Right, here we have a parameter called support sky atmosphere affecting height fog. So we need to enable that. So this is pretty important. Otherwise it doesn't work exactly as expected. I have already done that. So I'm going to close this settings page. Now I'm going to the place actors, and I'm going to search for height fog. Right, this is what you want. And I'm going to drag that into my scene. Now you can see I got a nice fog, but I think it's too much. So then I had to go to the details panel. So I'm gonna reduce this little bit, something like this, fog density, and then I can increase the fall off as well. So basically these two values should be extremely small, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Then I need to get the sun to somewhere here, somewhere closer to the horizon, and try to see whether it's working as expected. For that one I can simply type Ctrl+L. So then you have this tool, then you can control the mouse position quite easily. I think this is quite okay for right now. So now I'm going back into my main level. I have already sculpted this landscape, so then I can show you some other concept. Right, let's go into our main map. Right, now I need to talk about something pretty important for a landscape, and that's shadows. Shadows are quite important, and so like it's performance heavy. So to show you that, so let me turn on some performance stats. In order to do that, I'm going to get the output window. So I can go to window, developer tools, and search for output log. All right, this is what you want. So now I have the command line, so I can type some commands here. Here I'm going to type stat fps. So basically I can see the frame rate. So I need to get one more parameter, stat unit, which will find handy in some case because I can see the difference between the CPU and the GPU usage here. So about shadows, for that one we are talking about cascade shadows in this case. So this is the most important shadows affecting a landscape. Cascade shadows are basically part of the directional light, in this case our sun. So I can click here in the directional light, and from the search box I can search for cascade. I can see a couple of options right now. First of all, I'm going to put this to default because this number is 3 is by default. So let me go up a little bit. So as you can see, if I go up some distance, I don't see any shadows. So if I come closer, you can see now the shadows are fading away. So that is managed by this distance parameters. For example, I can reduce this one. So basically that's what you're looking at. So by default this is 20,000. I think that's a quite decent value, right? And then so now we have another thing called number of cascades. For example, if you look at closer, this shadow is something different. Then if I go up, it's a different shadow. It's really hard to see in this case. Now we have 3 shadows and it blends between these 3 shadows. By default it's 3, but you can reduce that number to 1 as well. So let me talk about the performance related to cascade shadows. For example, now let me put these shadows distance to 0. So basically we turn off cascade shadows. So if you look at the frame rate numbers, I can see my frame rate is around like 67 kind of stuff. If you look at the millisecond amount, it's 14 millisecond, 14.8, something like that. So then I'm gonna increase this number to 20,000. The frame millisecond number increased like 18% from, so then it really drops like considerable amount of frames, like so from 67 to something around 52 in this case. So it's really heavy, and the issue is the shadow calculation logic is the heavy. For example, I can show you that. So I can increase this number into something like around 200,000. You can see it increases as I increase that. But if I put something around like 2,000, so I get much improved result. So I think in this case we need to use 20,000. It looks decent. And also, of course, I can reduce the number of cascades to 1 and I can gain some performance back. So if you're looking for a really nice result, so of course you can crank these numbers, but then if you want to save some performance, definitely you need to like reduce these numbers. And sometimes you can actually turn up shadows 100% and still you can get some good result depending on the situation. If you're targeting a low-end device, definitely you should try to think about that. So let me put it back to default, so then we can discuss the next part. Now we are talking about screen space global illumination. For that one, I'm gonna enable some setting. You can go to edit, project settings, and then search for SSGI. So this is the beta feature, but it works just fine. So you can enable this. I already done that. And also you can enable distance field generation. Yeah, somewhere here. So here you need to enable this one as well. So it will also affect this global illumination and give you some much better result. After you enable this thing, you have to restart the project. Right, then let me focus somewhere here so I can easily demonstrate what this global illumination does. Here we need to work on the post-processing volume. So I have already added the post-processing volume. Right now we are trying to change some settings on this post-processing volume. So here just search for global illumination. All right, now we have this parameter. By default I have something like this one. So let me turn this out. You cannot see much difference here. Let me crank this number something like 10. So then I can show you what's happening here. All right, so let me turn up this global illumination. So you can see now, so you can see this area. So now it's quite darker. Then I can put it here and I can get some light from here. And this is totally fake, and I'm quite not sure this is the right number. So I think that this is quite okay in this case. You don't see any difference, but in if you have a large scene with large number of props, and this will certainly affect, and you can get a really nice effect. If you talk about the performance, let's give it a try. So now we have the frame rate. You can see the frame is costing around 22 milliseconds, and then I can turn it off. Yeah, there's no difference. It's just fine. Right. Then the other thing we need to look at is bloom, and some people say it's a gold rays. In order to do that, I need to search for the directional light, because this is some setting in the directional light. And here I'm gonna search for bloom. Right, I can simply enable this light sharp bloom. Then you can see this bright sunlight. So let me lower this little bit, something like this, and this is what we're looking at. So this is really nice depending on the situation, and if you need to get a cinematic feel, and this is certainly interesting. And you can increase this bloom scale. I think the default is fine, but sometimes then you can increase this threshold. Yeah, you can control how it affects the environment. And also you can reduce the brightness and try to get the feel you want. I think this is fine in my case. And let's turn this off for right now. The next thing we need to look at is reflections. So let me go to this area. So I have some this puddle effect here. Now you can see the reflection of these pillars on this water-like surface. And the problem is it's basically screen space reflections. So basically what you can see is only the things you can see on the screen. For example, if I tilt the camera a little bit up, you cannot see these reflections. Do something like this, then you can see the whole, almost these pillars. Yes, this is a problem, and there are some ways to improve this, but I think in this case, stick with this screen space reflections is the best idea for a game. Right, so this is it for today's video, and the next video I'm going to talk about ray tracing and how that could improve the lighting and everything related to that. All right, see you soon with something interesting. Bye.